Hello and welcome back to the When Words Collide podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Diano, and I am also here with my co-host,
Kaylin Bell.
and we are here once again, part 3 of our interview with the one and only Jack Castle.
Part 3, this time it's personal.
That's right, we're back better than ever. Put on your 3D glasses because this is a threequel, baby. All right.
Oh, man.
So,
I wish we did 3D for this one. That would be
3D.
awesome.
so
Love it.
where we left off,
Yes.
we were talking about...
Part 1
Yes.
was what?
Part 1 was talking about your time as a stuntman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
and becoming an Alaskan police officer. Part
Okay.
2
Part 2.
was about your time as a writer writing Stranger World.
Yes.
Now, part 2 ended off us talking about your time actually working at theme parks, designing for theme
Yes.
parks, like Silverwood.
Yes.
And so, what was it like, not just being behind the scenes as an actor, but behind the scenes designing experiences for people?
So that's literally it is my favorite form of writing. So they gave me this 1915 train, right? Gorgeous, gorgeous train. They actually outbid Walt Disney himself for this train, right? They really wanted it. So they built a 3.2 mile track through Pacific Northwest, gorgeous scenery, gorgeous trestle over this nice little valley, perfect. And the owner's lips to my ears is, we got it wrong for the last 25 years. You know, they just, no one was riding this train ride because the show was just so brutal. And they showed me a bunch of past shows. The train stopped in the woods, and bandits had lassies lost in the wet. I mean, it made no sense. I kept rewatching it thinking, man, I'm slipping because I can't even grasp what they were attempting. At least if I, knew what they were attempting, I would be like, okay. So it was the worst in independent surveys. It was the worst rated attraction they had for years. Gorgeous train. Mm-hmm. So I said, can you help us out? Sure. So I was a stuntman at Universal. I worked with Disney in a lot of years, a writer, obviously. And they said, can you create a stunt show? And I said, well, I want to create, from the depot, from the train depot, I feel like we need to start the story. So you get into the train depot, and I just had this vision of, I want to stay in 1915, right, what the train is. And then I started researching 1915, and one of the more interesting things was African Safari, 1915, right? I mean, you're going in the jungle not knowing that something could come out and eat you, and it actually could.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I want to do this 1915 adventure, but we're going into a mythological frontier.
Right.
So then I had these cryptozoologists and these posters and these missing persons. And did you guys ever ride Jungle Cruise at Disney World?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It was Jungle Cruise on a train,
Right.
but throwing a bunch of cryptids, like mermaids were in
Nice.
lagoons, and Bigfoot was in the, on the rocks and everything. And then, of course, there's the stunt show where bandits robbed the train. And, at the time, they didn't even do a fight scene. And by the time I was done, I had a fist fight, I had an axe handle fight, I had a high fight. We shot bad guys off the tower. And then, they, of course, robbed the train. Their maximum donations for an entire summer was $6,000. So the robbers get on the train. They hold you up. Everybody knows where the money goes. It went to a local orphanage. Okay, So I come in, worst rated show. Their highest donation was $6,000. They sold nothing on the train. There's actually a video of this. 2019, Marshall Jack hosts the IAPA Awards, which, if you don't know, it's the largest theme park awards in the world. Well, that show went up against Disney, Universal Studios, and everyone else, and it became the #1 show, reimagined show in the world.
Wow.
Beating Disney. All right, but how did it happen? So I write the script, I cast the actors, I stunt coordinate it, I direct it, we put it together the night before, and I guess I can talk about this now. The night before, in a random drug test, the lead actress failed the drug test.
Oh.
So the general manager's like, what do we do? I wasn't supposed to be in it. The general manager said, what do we do? I said, well, I know it. I wrote it, I cast it, I know everything. I'll jump in for the weekend, and then Monday we'll start looking for a replacement.
Yeah.
So I jump in, I do the show, And man, I haven't been, because remember, I was a stuntman in my 20s.
Yeah.
In my 30s, in my early 40s, I was a cop. I was law enforcement. So I'm doing this, and I'm back, and it feels good, and I'm just having a blast, and I'm thinking, this is a weekend gig, right? Well, Monday comes around, and I see the general manager, and he sees me in shirt and tie, and he's like, what are you doing? I said, well, we're going to start looking for a replacement actor. And he goes, you see this stack of comic cards? And I said, yeah. He goes, this is the most comic cards we've ever gotten that were positive ever in the 25 years we've been open. And it's all about your character, Marshall Jack, who I played, and the train show. And he said, get your butt back on the train. He didn't say butt, but I want to keep it clean.
No, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So next thing I know, I'm doing this for 9 years. 9 years. Every time I tried to leave, they were like, no, we'll take care of you and your family. And they did. And we did it for 9 years.
Wow.
But my favorite part is you're literally writing a story and going, hey, come on, step on this vintage train with me, and I'm going to guide. I get to be your guide as we travel through this story that I wrote. And it was phenomenal. And then if a joke worked, we kept it. If a joke didn't work, the rule was you try it at least 3 times.
Right.
Because sometimes the crowd is just hot or they're tired. So you try it at 3 different times in different times of the day. And then if it still didn't work, you threw it out.
Okay.
But creating theme park attractions where you're literally writing the story and you're guiding them through it, best writing ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a lot
well,
of fun.
like
Can't disagree.
when a lot of people think of like storytellers, they think of authors
Yeah.
and script writers and that kind of thing. I'm curious, as a novelist yourself, like what you feel the approach is different in how you tell a story through like an interactive live attraction as opposed to like kind of a cut and dry novel.
Well, and in a way it's counterproductive because when you get with the big boys like Disney and Universal, because they actually, when they found out I was in Orlando, they approached me about working for them. And I was very disheartened to learn that it's very compartmentalized.
Right.
So you would be a creative director, which means you get to write the script. They give you the kind of the ground rules. This is what the attraction is. And you write a script to it, and then they all have input, and then you go back and you do another revision. And then you turn it over to, that's a creative director. Then you turn it over to like an operations director, and you're out. Now the operations director gets to take that script and bring it to fruition.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what a privilege it was to not only write the script, cast the actors, stunt coordinate the actors, direct the actors, do it all in a visual medium. It was so much better. I had so much more fun. And I should probably say, remember how I said the maximum donation was $6,000?
Yeah.
$98,000.
Wow.
We went from worst attraction in the theme park to independent surveys to number 1. Yeah.
Nice.
So
I bet that felt good. You're riding that
That's
high
quite
for
something.
a while.
well, then I said, why don't we put a saloon girl on the train and sell ice cold bottles of water and snacks and themed things to go with the story. We made $90,000 in our first 3 months. Last thing, one of my favorite things is I built fairy woods, right? This came in later years. And I said, I want to sell fairies on the train. Like Barbies, fairies for the little girls. Because we had so much for the boys, I wanted something for the girls.
Right.
So you go through fairy woods, and the cryptozoologists, who were always played by the girls, right? Because they just love doing the British snarky, cryptozoologist characters. And they were really good and very popular. So they would take out butterfly nets, and they would go, oh, we're in fairy woods, let's catch some fairies. And, they would, swing them around over their heads, the nets over their heads, and then they would reach inside, and they would take out a fairy. And then they would say, which little girl wants to adopt a fairy? Well, of course, every little girl's hand goes up to adopt this Barbie with fairy wings, right? Well, for the price, for an adoption fee of $5, you can adopt a fairy. Well, you would think after all I've done, these guys would trust me, right? Well, they go, look, we don't believe in these fairies that they're going to sell, etc. We'll give you these 200 fairies, but you better sell them by the end of summer, so 3 months, right? I sold them in a weekend. Yeah.
I'm not
No.
surprised at this point.
The only
I'm
ne-
what I'm hearing.
The only negative was I would go into town, in my personal clothes, and everybody knew who I was. Here comes Marshall Jack, right?
Yeah.
And they go, "Hey, Marshall Jack, you jerk!" And I'm like, "What?" They go, "Listen, every time I go to Silverwood, I got to buy these $5 fairies for my 5 daughters. Every time I'm there on train." He's like, "You haven't any idea how much money I've spent?" And I don't know if this is even worth mentioning, but he told me how the wings kept falling off the ferries. So what I did is I went to the manufacturer and I said, "Look, we're not buying these ferries anymore unless you fix this problem. Because I don't want kids going home and their toy falls apart when they barely got to play with it." And to their credit, they fixed it. They fixed the problem. So I was like, I'm glad that guy called me a jerk.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That's amazing. That sounds great. Like, that sounds like such a fun job to have.
Yes.
I mean, it's super unique because it's like everything always has to, feed into the narrative and the theme
Yeah.
and everything. Like even, something like selling fairies for kids, you can't just have it like in a store, You're
making it part of the
story.
experience.
It's part of the
Exactly.
story.
You don't break the. You actually, we had talked about, or you had mentioned working at Disney,
Yeah.
and you had talked about not breaking the magic.
Yes. With Snow White.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that. It's kind of a similar thing here, but like you said, the fairies and the donations, it's not just asking for money; it's part of the experience.
Yes.
Like you're not breaking the illusion of the magic here. It's part of the immersive story, which very clever.
all the adults knew that when they
yeah.
were getting robbed, it was fake, right?
Yeah.
They knew that the money that they were giving, as soon as they found out the money, 100% of it, because I would talk to them, and they would say, "Well, I'm sure the theme park keeps a cut." And I said, "I actually know the owner. He doesn't need the money, all right? This guy has a 151-foot yacht with a helicopter pad. He does not
set.
need the money, okay? $100,000 is nothing to him. It all goes to charity." And that's so rare. If you don't know that,
Yeah,
most of the time, the people who collect charity,
they get a cut.
They get a cut.
The companies get a cut.
yeah, exactly. And they got to pay people too. But in this case, once they found out 100% of it went to the orphanage, that was it. And collectively over the 9 years, we collected $1 million. So
That's
that was my
remarkable.
goal.
by,
That was
like,
my goal
Yeah,
before we left.
yeah.
I was like, we got to hit 1 million.
That's pretty remarkable for theme park standards, like donations,
Yeah.
just from donations alone.
It's very similar to here, I would imagine, because, having met a lot of you, it's a very tight-knit community. Even though Calgary has 10,000 people, is that right?
I've heard the number.
That's
don't
okay.
remember
We
off
don't-
the top of my
but
head.
but it's a
Yeah.
very, even though that area, that community was big, because Coeur d'Alene is a very popular tourist destination, it's a very tight-knit community.
Yeah.
And once they found out where this money was going, we saw the donation bag go from $1 to $5 to a lot of people had no problem going, "Hey, here's $20. I know where this is going, and I think it's money well spent."
Yeah.
And they were so appreciative, and we saw them stretch every dollar. It wasn't like, "Oh yeah, thanks for the money." No, they stretched every penny
Yeah.
that we gave them.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. That's incredible. I mean, I wish where people had, the vision to do that properly. Not to mention the integrity, just in general. Like, just to say, we're going to ask for money, but we're not going to keep any of it.
Yeah,
Like-
and they totally could have.
Oh,
They totally.
Yeah.
They
It's
could have actually
cash.
robbed people.
Yeah, yeah.
They coulda-
They
yeah.
actually could have kept it.
Robbed
and,
people, yeah.
and the owner, Gary Norton, was Gary is a sweet guy, but if he found out somebody was stealing from literally orphans, I think Gary would not be a nice guy.
Yeah.
be.
Justifiably so,
Could you
yeah.
imagine? I mean, like, dude, you're stealing from orphans,
How low do you have to? You're lower than 15th century bandits.
That is
That's
like
good.
if you're writing a book and you want to prove that somebody is a terrible person, you
Yeah.
write in them stealing something from an orphan.
From an orphan. That's like the trope
That's
at this
the-
Oh,
point.
really?
Stealing
Okay, yeah.
stealing from
I
an
never
orphan.
thought of that.
That's like
That
all
is-
the stories. It's like, we need to raise enough money by midnight or else they'll close down the orphanage. That's just
Yeah,
the plot of the
exactly.
Blues Brothers, basically. I just
Yeah,
described
yeah,
the Blues
that's true.
Brothers. But Yeah, that's great.
You guys have the best references. You guys hit memories that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love the blue.
So going off of that, we had mentioned how wild of a career progression it is to go from stuntman
Yes.
to writer.
No, police
Oh,
officer.
sorry, stuntman to police officer to theme park designer to writer and beyond. I need to ask.
Wait. So, for anybody listening who thinks none of this is true, please go to the website, jackcastlebooks.com.
It's a good website.
There's all the photos are there. No, this isn't a plug. This is, I want, because it's hard. It's hard talking about this because usually if I meet law enforcement people, I only talk about the law enforcement part of my life, right?
Yeah.
Because you can see in their eyes, oh, wait, so you were a stuntman, you were a cop, and then you're a best-selling author? What were you not, an astronaut? So please, check out the website, and you'll be able to see all the photos of things that I've done.
But my point is going from theme park designer.
Yeah.
Where did, if you don't mind me asking, where did criminal justice professor come from?
Oh, so once I worked in law enforcement, man, that's a loaded question.
If it's too much, I'm just
It is
saying.
so much. You guys don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
I was very good at helping young people transition from I want to work in law enforcement to actually working in law enforcement. And the college got wind of this and saw that I was able to place people in law enforcement jobs through using a local security company. And so they said, hey, would you be willing to be a guest professor? And I was a guest professor, and next thing you know, they were like, would you be a full-time professor? I said, I can do one night a week. And so I was criminal justice professor. Well, then they had this thing where, who is the most popular professor there is? And, I ruffled a lot of feathers by, no one expects a criminal justice professor to win that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did.
Why not? At this
Why
point,
not?
Why not?
Why not
win
astronaut?
The best award?
You should just
Why
go
not
for it.
I
astronaut?
was not an astronaut.
You could have said, I would have believed you.
Yeah.
I would have believed you.
No, I don't lie. I don't lie.
But,
It's so much, guys, tell the truth. It's so much easier telling the truth.
oh, of course. Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Oh, I don't mean you guys. I meant your listeners.
Yes,
anybody
you
listening?
heard that. Don't lie.
Yeah.
But also on that, we before we started recording, we were just kind of chatting offhand, and
Yeah.
you had mentioned interacting with polar bears. And if you go onto your website,
Yes.
jackcastlebooks.com,
Yeah.
you will see that you had worked as a response team commander in the Arctic Circle.
Oh, come on. No one is going to believe anything
I,
coming out of our mouths anymore.
it's so hyper
way.
specific.
We have to ask
We
about
have
these
to
things.
ask.
Okay, what do you want to know?
Okay.
I mean,
How did you find? I'm not going to ask too much of a loaded question. How did you find that role? Because it seems
Being
kind of
a
out of the way.
commander of a security force response team of a ground missile defense site responsible for the safety of the entire western seaboard.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't have that kind of time. Yeah.
Oh my
Is the
God.
picture there of me as a captain with all the tack gear and on the island?
Fist fighting
Yeah.
polar bear.
yeah.
No, I didn't fist fight any polar bears. Come on, you're gonna get us in trouble. No, I didn't. I was nearly killed by a polar bear, but that's another story.
We have to pick the part 10. We're gonna get to
Part
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
Well, actually, I do need to wrap this up because I have
Okay.
to go do fireside chat.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yes.
and we are talking about. I know you can't drag all this equipment there, but one of the stories that they want me to talk about is where I nearly got killed by a polar bear.
Oh, wow.
If you are at When Worlds Collide, whenever you're if Jack Castle is here with you, follow him to his panel
Oh.
because you're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna
I was like,
hear
where's this going?
You're gonna hear some truly amazing stories.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, man.
You're okay. And before we just wrap it up, very quick question. Very quick answer to this question.
Yeah.
When you worked as kind of a Harrison Ford impersonator, basically, because you worked as Indiana Jones,
Yep,
you also worked as Han Solo.
that was the best one. Yeah,
When you worked as Han, did you meet George Lucas?
yeah, several times.
You did meet
Yeah.
George.
What was George
What's
Lucas?
George Lucas like?
Fantastic. First of all, I met him before I worked with him. Right,
Oh,
he was
okay.
backstage, and he purposely would walk through. Back then, it was called the MGM Studios. Now it's called Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
He would purposely not walk with his kids because somebody would eventually recognize him, and it got scary for his kids. So a Disney rep would escort his kids on all the rides, and he would hang back.
Mm.
So the first thing that I noticed about George Lucas is he wore Kmart clothes. Yeah. Now, they were clean and they were new,
Yeah.
but it was very obvious these were not, super trendy, expensive clothes. He wore Kmart comfortable clothes. At the time I met him, he really, maybe this is to, stay hidden. He really grew out his beard. I've never seen the beard that big in interviews. And to the point where somebody said, that's George Lucas. And I looked and I said, that's that guy wearing the Kmart clothes? I was like, that's not George Lucas. And they're like, no, that's George Lucas. And he was such a great guy, the way he took care of his family. That's one of the things that I really remember. He absolutely loves his kids. And, working with him, have we done the Han Solo audition?
No. You
No.
did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So that is a great flippant story. So if we do part 4, we got to do the Han Solo audition.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's leave it there.
All right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Stay tuned.
Because I got to audition for George Lucas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So
Come on!
you heard
Yeah.
it. You heard it here, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much again to Jack Castle
Thanks for
for the
having me.
3rd time.
Yeah.
pleasure.
Out of
It's a
pleasure
curiosity,
to have you.
are you
You
going to be
guys-
back here tomorrow?
Yes, I'm here tomorrow. By the way, you can't pass these. I realize this is, it's all audio, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So you can't pass these 2 smiling guys and not stop and say hi and talk to them. They are just fantastic. So they are purposely parked right by the staircase that goes up to my room. So, yeah, you can't pass them and not talk to them. All right? They're fantastic.
Appreciate
so please
it.
listen to all their
Thank you
shows.
so
They're
much.
just really great
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Thank you. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me, guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
much again. And
Thanks
thank
for
you
coming.
to everyone for listening. And from all of us here at When Words Collide, thank you and have a great day.
Yeah.
Yeah.